these violent anti-fascists, they're not going to have anything done to them, are they?
Nazi, come get the off our street. Get the fuck off our
Are these people going to do anything?
Get the fuck off our
They
street.
say we don't have freedom of speech.
Need to go, boy.
They say we should. Be nice. Be nice. Come here, Nazi.
Get the fuck off our streets. Get the fuck off our street. Piece of shit. Fuck you.
Sir, please. I'm just here to protest.
Remember this clip of Yvette Felarca from By Any Means Necessary punching a man? Well, apparently this is a totalitarian crackdown on her First Amendment rights to punch people. I was in the middle of making a video. I saw this story and I fucking dropped that video. I'm reporting on this right fucking now. The weirdest thing about the story is that it was written today. This story happened in June 2016. It's written today. What's with that? California police worked with neo-Nazis to pursue anti-racist activities, documents show. Officers expressed sympathies with the white supremacists and sought their help to counter-protest after a violent 2016 rally, according to court documents. California police investigating a violent white nationalist event worked with white supremacists in an event to identify counter-protesters and sought the prosecution of activists with anti-racist beliefs, court documents show. The records, which also showed that officers expressed sympathy with white supremacists and trying to protect the neo-Nazi organizer's identity, were included in a court briefing with 3 anti-fascist activists who were charged with felonies after protesting at a Sacramento rally. Charged with felonies. Let's see. It won't stop. Jailed activists blast U.S. crackdown on anti-Trump protesters. Yvette Felarca faces riot charges after participating in an anti-fascist demonstration. The 47-year-old teacher was handcuffed, jailed, and later, to her shock, charged with assault, inciting a riot, and participating in a riot over involvement with an anti-fascist demonstration in the California capital more than a year ago. Anti-fascist demonstration. Multiple people stabbed at Sacramento white nationalist rally. 7 people taken to the hospital, including 1 white nationalist. Police break up chaotic fights between groups and anti-fascist. Between groups. Just groups. Multiple people were stabbed and beaten in a brutal clash between white nationalists and counter-protesters just outside the California Capitol building in Sacramento on Sunday. 10 people were taken to hospitals with injuries, with 2 critical trauma stab wounds, the fire department said, in what it called a mass casualty incident. Why are you arresting people? You're just fucking oppressing the anti-racists. Chris Harvey, Sacramento Fire Department, said 9 men, 1 woman, ranging from 19 to 58, were treated for stab wounds, cuts, scrapes, and bruises. Sacramento police did not immediately respond to a request for details. Harvey said the main fight broke out when people carrying sticks rushed into the rally area. A park by the Capitol building, California Highway Patrol officers eventually broke up the fight. In a brief phone conversation with The Guardian, white nationalist leader Matthew Heimbach said that one of the injured people belonged to his group, only one of the injured people belonged to his group. Photos and videos posted online showed chaotic fights between people clad almost entirely in black and other protesters, some of whom carried signs labeled anti-fascist, Nazi scum, and smash patriarchy and racism. Despite the prevalence of police in body armor and mounted on horses, violence broke out, leaving blood splattered on the sidewalks and people visibly wounded. People used pepper spray and flagpoles to attack each other, and video from protesters in ABC 10 showed others swinging blunt objects wildly, beating people to the ground, and dragging and kicking bodies. Police intervened, sometimes riding horses to break up the crowd, but they were unable to separate all of the combatants before serious injuries were inflicted. A group calling itself the Traditionalist Workers' Party had planned a rally near the Capitol for several weeks, and some arrived in shirts with Nazi imagery. Link doesn't work. Twitter's taken down the account. The group had a permit to demonstrate, declaring itself a political party whose agenda is traditional American values. Counter-protesters also spent weeks planning what they called a shut-down Nazi rally. Dozens turned out to protest, photos and videos showed. After police ended the violence, the demonstrators marched around the park chanting, "When Nazis come to town, what do? Shut them down." The Southern Poverty Law Center, an Alabama-based watchdog that monitors hate groups, calls the Traditionalist Workers' Party a white nationalist group. The counter-protesters, organized in part via Facebook, writing, "Anti-Fascist Action Sacramento does not believe in allowing hate to have a platform, and we are calling upon the community to shut down their rally. Fighting fascism is a moral duty, not a political one." One of their leaders, Yvette Felarca, told reporters after the clashes, "The Nazis are dangerous, and that's why we need to take them on directly. Take them on head-on." So this is part of the community advertising campaign of the anti-racists. "The Nazis are coming. West Coast white supremacists and neo-Nazi skinheads are gathering this month at the steps of the state capitol. Bring bricks and bats."
These Arab people in this country, and that's what we have to do to stop them from taking violent action against us. We'll do it again. And I don't think the police should have been protecting them, but
And this is another piece of propaganda put out by Anti-Fascist Action, the anti-racists being defended in the article, written on February 2018. What's really unforgivable is that they've had a year and a half to figure out the story, and instead, they've worked on making their propaganda better. "We are trying to raise money in the lead up to the counter-demonstration of the neo-Nazi rally on June 26 in attempts to establish a base fund just in case people get arrested or seriously injured on that day. This way, we are ready in case anything like that does happen on June 26. Please check out the update below for a full write-up." Yes, they are literally raising bail money.
Get back, man. I'm fine. Stay back. Stay back. Stay back on the sidewalk. Calm down.
So let's take this story back a notch. The charges are obviously politically motivated. It is clearly a witch hunt, Felarca told The Guardian in her first interview since she was released Thursday on a $25,000 bail after 2 nights in jail. This is in response to the fact that the movement against Donald Trump is strong and the resistance is strong. Felarca is one of hundreds of anti-Trump activists across the U.S. facing prosecution for protesting against the White House and white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups that have increasingly organized in public. These criminal cases, including many in which protesters could face decades in prison, no kidding, it's armed assault, has drawn accusations that the government is trampling on the First Amendment and broadly targeting critics in an aggressive effort to silence them. Yeah, broadly targeting critics who stab people with their First Amendment rights is how this is working. We've seen a real crackdown on protest and dissent. Dead City Legal Posse, an activist group supporting more than 200 protesters who were arrested and charged with serious felonies after protesting at Trump's inauguration. All branches of the criminal justice system are taking cues from the Trump administration. They're trying to increase their power and be as punitive as they possibly can be. Felarca, a Berkeley teacher and longtime leader with the organization by any means necessary, was part of a group of activists gathered in Sacramento, California on 26th of June 2016. Shanta Driver, Felarca's attorney and national chair of BAMN, said white nationalists were armed aggressors and that police allowed the neo-Nazis and pro-Trump supporters to bludgeon and stab and cause the hospitalization of unarmed, peaceful opponents of Donald Trump. A spokeswoman for the Sacramento prosecutor declined to comment on the case, which were announced last week with similar charges filed against 2 other counter-protesters and a man believed to be associated with the white nationalists. Felarca said she would not be intimidated. "One of the reasons I was arrested was to try and demoralize and scare me and other people from continuing to oppose Trump and his neo-Nazi supporters. I'm certainly not going to stop organizing and speaking out." The charges echo investigations and prosecutions of anti-Trump and progressive activists across the country, including cases in New Orleans and other parts of California. Let's see. What went on in New Orleans? Who was attacked in New Orleans? I see broken windows. Is that bro? Yeah. No peaceful transition. I wonder why people got arrested. We always want to get the message out that we are going to allow people to protest peacefully whenever they want to exercise that right, Harrison said. What is not going to be allowed, what is not going to be tolerated, are acts of violence and acts of vandalism. What do you mean? You're just destroying cop cars. Why are you getting charged?
What did you see? What was happening?
There's a group of white people coming through there and started busting things up.
Them anti-racist white people.
Shooting fireworks and beating on the police car.
How many were there, do you think?
Oh, it had to be a crowd of over 100.
They started beating on that, hollering, Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, all that. And yeah, they were beating it in hard. I went in and locked my door.
It wasn't a firework. They took a hammer to the window. It was just a bunch of stupid kids.
Hammer. Were you here when it happened?
I was standing right there. They identified as Trump protesters. They definitely wanted to make their message clear that they wanted nothing to do with his presidency, throwing lit fireworks at the cops, smashing windows, spray painting windows, smashing police cruisers.
And we're back to the article from 2018. Defense lawyers said the case at the state capitol offers the latest example of U.S. law enforcement appearing to align with neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups while targeting anti-fascist activists and Donald Trump protesters after violent clashes. It is shocking and really angering to see the level of collusion and the amount to which the police covered up for the Nazis, said Yvette Felarca, a Berkeley teacher and anti-fascist organizer charged with assault and rioting after participating in the June 2016 Sacramento rally, where she said she was stabbed and bludgeoned in the head. The people who were victimized by the Nazis were then victimized by the police and the district attorneys. Ayer's report also noted Felarca's political activism in great detail, referencing her activism on behalf of students of color in women's rights protests. This is a textbook case of a political witch hunt and selective prosecution, Shanta Driver, one of Felarca's attorneys, said in an interview. This is from the Sacramento Bee at the time of the attacks. Despite the massive police presence, which included large groups of law enforcement officers in helmets and riot gear on horseback and bicycles, participants in Sunday's demonstration claimed law enforcement did little to stop the violence. Both sides blamed each other for the outbreak of the violence. I don't think there's any controversy about who started it, said Matt Perrott, a spokesman for the white supremacist group. People rushed our guys. Our guys were all trained from the top down for months that this was going to be a permitted, peaceful demonstration at the state capitol. What we hadn't anticipated was that the Sacramento police were going to actively and deliberately set us up for ambush by allowing angry mobs to come at our guys. We obviously didn't anticipate that. I think the Sacramento police thought it would be funny to watch these Nazis get beaten up by this numerically superior mob. Anti-fascist protesters say the neo-Nazis sparked the violence by pepper spraying and attacking them. James Lee Clark, a homeless activist, said he was surprised that the police allowed the anti-fascist demonstrators to engage the neo-Nazis. It was weird, he said. They usually don't let us anywhere near them. We've protested against them in previous years, and we've never been allowed on state property during the rally, and this time we were there. We had the steps. They didn't try to stop us. It was a pretty interesting dynamic. McPhail denied there was any intent by law enforcement to hold back. The CHP would not say how many officers it had on hand, acknowledging only that more than 100 law enforcement personnel were there and that the outbreak of violence was extremely unusual. Chris Vellucci, a representative for the National Lawyers Guild, said his group had about a dozen people present to monitor the police response. He described it as a free-for-all. The police didn't step in really at all, Vellucci said. They basically just let people do what they wanted to. He said that he was one of the first to arrive on the scene of the stabbings, and that police did not arrive for, say, 3 to 4 minutes. They weren't really there at all. It was like, I don't know what happened to them. I mean, there's this pitched battle going on, there are people being stabbed. Even after the initial outbreak of violence, the demonstration continued into the afternoon with law enforcement watching as both sides screamed and threatened each other with sticks. Many were dressed all in black and wore masks. It was like someone made a decision, Vellucci said. In this case, someone made a decision to just let them fight it out, and that's what it appeared. I'm watching the CHP and they're standing there on their horses, or they're watching this happen, I don't know why. At the past neo-Nazi rallies in the state capital, there have been complaints that law enforcement was overly protective of the Nazis. Various videos taken at the scene show police rushing in to set up perimeters around the injured, and to allow paramedics to triage the wounded. Some show officers shoving protesters out of the way. But for much of the afternoon, police stayed on the edges of the event, standing in the shade near the sidewalks fronting L and 10th Streets as the two sides threatened each other with sticks, tossed fireworks, and charged each other. Granada added that no officers were injured and that the Capitol, which usually remains open for tourists on Sundays, was closed. The building was shut down as soon as the violence began, and all permits for the event that day were revoked. There were plenty of hints ahead of time that the Sunday rally would not go peacefully. A similar brawl occurred in February at a rally in Anaheim. Anti-fascist groups clashed with Ku Klux Klan members and left at least 3 people stabbed. Experts who monitor such groups say violence involving both sides is nothing new. Don't they know you're not allowed to say it's both sides? Both sides signal in advance of Sunday's riot that they are bracing for confrontation. The Antifa, a coalition of groups opposed to the neo-Nazi movement, issued a call on the web for protesters to show up and smash fascism.
It's Yvette Felarca, and I'm a national organizer with BAMN, which stands for By Any Means Necessary. Our whole name is the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, and Immigrant Rights, and fight for equality by any means necessary.
Obviously, you have some blood on your head. Is this how it was planned? Is this what you expected? Or what was the plan? What was the goal today?
The goal today was to shut down the Nazis' recruitment rally, and I want to congratulate everyone who came out today because we succeeded in doing that. We defeated them in their efforts. They had to run hiding behind the police and then just running away altogether. They were not able to hold any kind of demonstration on the west steps or any steps of the Capitol, and that was absolutely because of the militant, integrated, direct action of the people who came out. BAM mobilized to get people out here to shut them down, and we're really, really glad that there's been such an integrated, direct action struggle by people who came out to succeed in doing that. To us, there's no free speech for fascists. They do not have the right to organize for genocide, and we were organizing to tell people, to let the fascists know, anyone who's thinking about joining them, don't, because it's not going to be a good day for you. People had, have different ways that they approached the struggle. Our method is to build a mass, militant, integrated, anti-racist and immigrant rights movement, and to do that and getting as many people as possible to take militant mass direct action. And so, but everyone who came here today came here united with one goal, and that's to shut down the Nazi scum, and we did that. But today, they looked as weak as they are. They had to run hiding, and we want to make sure that happens, and we're committed to making sure that if they try to show their faces publicly again and hold any other rally, whether it's in Sacramento, whether it's any other place in California or nationally, BAM is building and leading a movement that's committed to building militant, integrated, direct action to shut them down by any means necessary. This was a very widespread mobilization. People came from all over California, in fact, some places outside of California. And, but that's what it takes. That's what building a mass militant movement takes.
And I saw you from the get-go, not afraid to get down there. The first man who appeared that you guys all attacked over there, and then, every time it seemed like there was a sign of anyone who may have been a Nazi, the crowds would just run, and that was all part of the plan.
Well, it's important for anyone who's thinking about joining racist genocide and a racist genocide organization like the Nazi groups that were holding this, that they're not welcome. And if they trip and fall in the process of that, good.
I've seen you fighting, I've seen you leading the chants, I see you getting teary-eyed talking about this. It seems like this was a whirlwind of emotions for you.
And we would do it again. And I am really, really glad that we did that. I would do it again, and we urge other people to join us next time. Clearly, they are dangerous, and we need to keep building this movement. We've got to build it as an independent political movement. BAM has no interest in sowing any illusions in the Democrats, obviously not the Republicans. This is about building a militant, integrated movement that's independent, organizes masses of people, and takes militant direct action to stop it.